Hey guys, this is Mike Mahaffey, the old bastard BJJ guy, here for BJJ Mental Models. Back in my day, we had to walk uphill in the snow both ways to get to the academy just to learn some crappy technique from a random purple belt. You kids have it so easy because now you can just subscribe to BJJ Mental Models Premium and get tons of great audio courses to learn new techniques, enhance your mindset, and entertain yourself. You can even get personalized rolling reviews from some of your favorite BJJ Mental Models coaches, including me. It's like having your own seminar, you spoiled little whippersnappers. So what are you waiting for? Subscribe to BJJ Mental Models Premium right now, get off my lawn, and go train.
Hey, welcome to BJJ Mental Models. I'm Steve Kwan. BJJ Mental Models is your guide to a conceptual and intelligent jiu-jitsu approach, and I'm back again with another one of these mini episodes. Really hope you guys are enjoying these as much as I'm enjoying making them. It's been really nice to get back into the older material that we haven't had a chance to do deep dives into in a while. I know this stuff really made a difference to a lot of our old school listeners, and so I'm hoping that the rest of you are finding this as valuable as people did back in the day. And for all of you old school folks, I hope you're enjoying it as well. Last time we talked about frames. Today we're going to talk about levers. Now, these two have a very important relationship, but before we get into it, I've got to address the elephant in the room. How do we pronounce this? And look, I'm just going to say, I don't want to start a bunch of drama about who's right and who's wrong, but in this case, I'm taking a stand. If you're not pronouncing it lever, you are just objectively wrong about things. It's not lever, it's lever. Speak it the proper Canadian way. Just got to bring all of my American friends up to speed here. I'm actually joking. I don't even know what the correct pronunciation is, but I have always called it lever. Anyway, what is a lever? A lever is a force multiplier. You might have heard the old Archimedes quote about how, give me a lever long enough and I can move the world. Leverage is a powerful thing. Leverage gives us the ability to do what we cannot do with pure strength alone. If you've been training jiu-jitsu for any period of time, you probably know that leverage is a big part of the core philosophy of this martial art. And it's important to point out that leverage is not technically required to get results in grappling. If I'm big enough and strong enough, I can just grab you and pick you up and throw you. I can suplex you. That doesn't always require leverage. It is possible to get stuff done with raw power if you have enough of it. But that said, most of us don't. And even if you do have raw power, you can't always guarantee you're going to be the bigger, stronger person in a match. And even if you can guarantee that, why not make things easier as opposed to harder? And that's the power of leverage. Leverage lets us make things easier because it lets us generate a lot more force than we can do with our raw strength alone. So again, the definition here of a lever is a force multiplier. You're taking an extension of the person's body, usually going to be their arm or their leg or sometimes their head, and you're using that to get an outsized amount of force. So if you want a visualization of what a lever looks like in practice, think of a seesaw. If you try to move a seesaw close to the fulcrum near the middle, it's really hard to do. But if you go to the end of the seesaw, it's pretty easy to lift up an entire human being, and that's because of leverage. Now, the longer the lever, the more leverage you can generate. That's again why with a seesaw, you want to get farther away from the fulcrum rather than closer. Another example I can think of back from when I was a kid, if you've got a stick and you want to break the stick, you'll probably remember if the stick is really long, it's going to be a lot easier to break than if it's short. Part of that is leverage in action. The longer the lever, the more leverage that you can get. Now again, in the context of jiu-jitsu, we've got 5 levers on the body to attack. You've got 2 arms, you've got 2 legs, you've got your head. We'll talk about the relationship between these in a later mini episode, but these are going to be the main things that you want to try to latch onto. Now, tying back to the prior episode that we did when we talked about frames, something that Rob Bernacki likes to ask his students is, when is a frame not a frame? And the answer is, when it's a lever. So if someone is putting up frames against you, you're trying to, pass their guard and they've got up a knee shield, or you're trying to establish side control, but they've got their forearms in the way and you can't get your weight down. To get past those frames, you've got a few approaches, but one of them is to turn that frame into a lever, to turn it into a point of leverage. If you can latch onto someone's arm or their leg or their head, it now becomes a liability to them. So that's kind of the difference between frames and levers. When I'm defending, I want to put up my frames to fight. If you're attacking me, you want to bypass my frames, or you want to turn them into levers by grabbing onto them and getting leverage. So you may have heard me on the podcast talk about the importance of managing grips in jiu-jitsu. Something that I'm fond of saying is that grips dictate position. That's an important enough concept that we actually have a whole article on it in our database. And really that is all about being the person who controls the levers. This is something that Rob Bernacki would refer to as a lever battle. You've got both athletes in there trying to fight to see who gets control of the levers first, and whoever does then gets the ability to move things forward. Now, in terms of how a lever works, you're going to get the most leverage at the end of the lever. This is why if you're trying to armbar someone, you're probably going to be trying to grab onto their hand or their wrist. The closer to the end of the lever that you get, the more force you can generate. Now, however, there's a lot more to lever control and lever management than just grabbing at the end of someone's arm and then pulling it. Because although you generate force at the end of the lever, to make the lever effective, you've got to isolate and control that lever. So, example, back to the arm bar. If I'm grabbing on your arm and I'm pulling it and I'm trying to hyperextend your elbow, that's not going to work unless your elbow and shoulder are also controlled. If the person that I'm attacking has the ability to move around and change angles, then that lever becomes a bit less powerful because it's not secure. So there's different parts to attacking a lever. On one hand, you want to attack the end of the lever to get leverage, but on the other hand, you also want to immobilize the rest of the lever so that the person can't bend it or otherwise take away your ability to generate force. So I found this to be a really helpful way to think about jiu-jitsu and to simplify my thinking in the moment. Rather than being obsessively concerned about what to do next, I'm always trying to think about who's got the dominant levers here. Do I have control of them or do they have control of me? And if they have good grips on me, I want to deal with that first and foremost. I don't want to be trying to do stuff if the other person has dominant lever control on me. So again, this is why Rob Bernacki would refer to this as a lever battle. You're jockeying for control, and then whoever gets lever control is going to be the one who has a lot more possibilities in front of them. So are levers essential in jiu-jitsu? Well, they're one of what I would call the core mechanics of jiu-jitsu. There's 6 concepts that kind of fall into that bucket. The first one is frames, the second one is levers, and we'll talk about the rest in the next few mini episodes. But again, as I mentioned earlier, you don't strictly need levers to do what you want to do. If you want to get leverage, you're going to need levers, but sometimes your goal isn't to get leverage. Sometimes your goal is just to keep the person at a distance. Or sometimes your goal is to immobilize them somehow. Or sometimes you're just trying to keep your own balance. So in other situations, having lever control might not be your number one priority, but especially when you're trying to isolate a limb, and that means you're going for an arm lock, a leg lock, even something on the head, you want to grab and control that lever. And we can talk about the head here for a second. The head is a lever just like your arms and legs, and some of the same principles apply. So again, attacking the end of the lever, you will see a lot of posture breaks that people do where they grab people by the top of the head rather than down by the neck. The reason why, it's easier to break someone's posture if you grab higher up on the head rather than on the neck, and that is because higher up on the head is the end of the lever. The neck is the base of the lever. So again, something to think about. So there's always a trade-off with lever management. When you go to the end, you get more force generation, you get more leverage, but if you grab a lever near the base or partway through the middle, you might have more control. You might be able to secure that lever, and if you really want to control a lever, meaning you want to submit someone, probably you need to have the whole lever immobilized, not just the end point. So anyway, there you go, a quick explanation of what a lever is in jiu-jitsu, or lever if you're American. I hope this was really helpful. Again, we've got 6 of these core mechanics that I want to break down, just so that you know what's coming up. We've talked about frames already. This chat was about levers. The next ones that we're going to talk about are wedges, clamps, hooks, and posts. So those are going to be the topics of the next episodes. But in any event, as always, thanks so much for hanging out with me here. I really like making these mini episodes. We've gotten some great feedback on them so far, so I definitely plan to keep making them. But if you want more, including all of the minis and all of the regular episodes that we've made, plus the newsletter and our awesome premium stuff, it's all at bjjmentalmodels.com. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you next time.